What are you wearing there? So
Well,
you got an
you said
African.
today was Umoja.
Oh, it is, every day,
Every
I'm
day, I
leaning
know,
in. I'm
right?
leaning in. Let's start there, right? Because,
Mm-hmm.
2 billion people watch Meghan Markle marry Harry. I was one of them. I got up early in the wee hours of the morning, watched all of the beautiful regalia, all of the celebrities and all of the pomp and circumstance and all of the, the queens of the this and the that and all of that. And I got on my scones and my crumpets and my tea. And I was just so enthralled. And I thought to myself as I was doing this insane process, Domity, we are psychologically damaged. We fought a whole ass war, shucking off the yoke of colonization and this whole monarchy thing. We rejected the king, we rejected the queen, and yet here we are, can't get enough of this. Can't get enough of it. We keep importing these motherfreakers over here to take up airspace, starting with downtown Julie Brown, that's my era, and Pierce Morgan and all the folks with the British accents and Martin Bashir and all of these degenerates, right? Yes, I said it. And they keep getting our dollar and our eyeballs, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
Oprah
we
sits
can't
down.
let go.
We cannot let go, but there's something more nefarious about it. And I want to talk about this in reference to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry sitting down with Oprah, the Queen, our Queen Oprah. It speaks about the damage. It's that interview wasn't just, a lot of people gonna make, commentary about the racism and the way Archie was, before he was even born, they were asking about his complexion and what does it mean. There's a larger conversation that we should have, and I think we should have it today.
Absolutely. I think it speaks to this history of, you know what? Let me go back a little bit. Just like you, I watched Meghan's marriage, not because I wanted to. I never understood the infatuation with colonial power that America revolted from. But I had to, because I was reporting on WGN radio at the time. And as a reporter, we're covering the pomp and circumstance of this wedding. And I had a choice to make. I said, do I want to be, the Michael of good times, the party pooper that's pointing out everything that is wrong with this whole apparatus? Or do I just want to do my 6-hour shift and go ahead and get off my, once I get off the air and go about my business? And so I just, reported on it. And then I found myself, as I was watching, just reporting on the proceedings that were happening, I found myself enthralled too with the idea that, you got Black singers, a Black choir here. You've got a Black princess. We're really literally seeing a Black princess. And we know Black princesses exist other places on the globe, but we never seen them in that space. So there's this bittersweet, like, inner turmoil that you have as a Black person, where it's like, you love to see us in these spaces that we haven't inhabited before. But then you got to self-interrogate, why do these spaces even hold so much power in our minds in the first place? And then you sit and look at all of the racism, the depravity that the UK outsourced across the world. They colonized India and left in its wake the caste system. They colonized West Africa. And now, multiple parts of Africa. And now not only did we lose our language, elements of our language there, we lost everything that we lost throughout the transatlantic slave trade. And then you come to this moment and you wonder why people are surprised that this family, this colonial regime, is racist. It's mind-boggling.
I think 866-801-8255. I also want to have this conversation. The notion of a monarchy, princes and princesses and kings and queens, and when did we get indoctrinated into this desire to want that? And I think of Disney, I think of Snow White, I think of Sleeping Beauty, I think of Rapunzel, I think of all of the fairy tales we grew up with, right? And how little girls have been indoctrinated into this notion that someday our prince will come, that someday, we'll be asleep and he'll kiss us on our lips and we'll wake up. This kind of notion that as a little girl, every single little girl had this beat into their psyche. So how could we not lean into watching a Black princess, right? As a Black young girl, I could never be Snow White. I could never be Cinderella, who was, had evil stepsisters, and she was, in the basement doing all of the work, but she had that slipper and that golden mane. She had that alabaster skin and that golden mane and those blue eyes. And even at midnight when she turned back into a pumpkin or whatever, when her coach turned into a pumpkin, she was still a white woman who fit the slipper. She fit the slipper. I could never fit the slipper. I wore a size 9 shoe at 9, 12 at 12. I could never fit the slipper. So what does that mean? Do I not have those same dreams? And why do I have those dreams, right? We're talking about education on this show quite frequently now. And during this pandemic, we've had the opportunity to reimagine what that looks like. But I think we need to go back, way back to, the beginning of what we have been conditioned to believe. And then the first time a Black woman shows up as a princess, she's a frog for most of the film, meaning we're not human. We have no voices. We're ribbiting. We're jumping around. We're frogs until the prince comes and saves us. And so we are positioning both our boys and our girls to either become princes and go save the princess. And then what happens if you fail? What if you don't become that? Are you less of a person? And as a girl, if he never comes to kiss you, to turn you into something worthy, are you then what? Not worthy? And by this very structure, we are relegating the majority of us to this second class. You talked about the caste system and how evil this empire, people whose only value is that they were inbred. That's your value. You're inbred. You're inbred. You didn't train for this. I'm reading this book by an African sister named, it's called The Gilded Ones. And it's based on this kind of patriarchy that we see throughout, especially Muslim Africa, where women can't do anything without a man. And so, but they need this breed of women who are impure to fight these demons that are taking over. It's a fantasy, it's that Afrofuturism. And it's beautiful the way she's setting it up because, women can't run, they can't have property, they can't drive, they can't do anything without having a father or man, and they have to be pure. They have to be pure, right? Except when trouble comes, and we need to train them to fight. And I was thinking about that. I was reading this morning, some of it, because I'm not finished with it yet. But I'm like, man, how we've been conditioned to even envision roles. I watched The Crown. It won an award at the Critics' Choice, won, I think, 4 awards last night. And I enjoyed it up until this season, of course, because I'm like, I lived through the Princess Di thing, and I'm not feeling Charles. He can go kick rocks with his dusty ass. So I didn't watch this season of The Crown, but I enjoyed it thoroughly until they got to Africa with Nkrumah. And I was like, I got salty, Doma T, because I'm like, there's a whole story here that is only told through this prince and queen, and all of this is told through this lens with the tea and crumpets. But there was a whole ass continent there before you got there with your debauchery, with your damn your evil. Yeah. That was thriving, that had their own kings and queens. Hell, Egypt had a pharaoh that was a woman, maybe a couple. If we're looking at history, there's so many stories not told. I'm like tired of them already. And I feel like you're right. You don't want to be Michael from Good Times, but we all need to turn into Michael from Good Times because this is some bull crap. And we think about 60 to 70% of the Commonwealth. And Meghan Markle said this in the interview. I'm going out now. Her job is to go out and represent the monarchy, where 60 to 70% of the Commonwealth looks not like her because she's very light-skinned in it.
Right.
They're people of color. They're brown and black people, 60 to 70%. So representation, now you finally glimpse somebody that has some melanin in it. You're like, wait a minute. They didn't want her there because they want those 60 to 70% of the people to idolize that alabaster skin. And Meghan Markle's not that. 45 sovereign nations in the world have monarchs, including the 16 Commonwealth realms that Queen Elizabeth is the head of state. Barbados just shook that yoke off a couple of years ago, but they've been independent 50 years and still have this chick as their head of state.
That, you see?
Until a couple of years ago. This queen who did nothing but be born. Like, stop it. What value does she have outside of that title that puts her in a position that I got to curtsy to her deeply at her very presence?
I think what is genius in the monarchy, in the United Kingdom, was their ability to outsource these atrocities. I keep using the word outsource because it's the only thing I can think of because, there were people responding to the interview. I don't know if you've been seeing British Twitter been going in and they're saying things like, oh, we don't worry about race here in the UK. just as racism has its microaggressions and subtleties in America, they're even more subtle in the United Kingdom because they benefited from the slave trade, yet didn't have as many slaves on its shores. You know, they benefited. You still have leaders that refuse to acknowledge what they've done in Jamaica. It was refused to apologize for hundreds of years of deprivation in all of these different countries. But they maintain this sense of decorum, this air of poise, and this regalia, these events, and they made it such an entertainment destination that it's hard for some people to believe, even though you might even know it intellectually. Even myself, I'm not pointing the finger at folks. Even though I know these things intellectually, when you see these prim and proper folks in their suits and they're doing this ceremony, they don't seem like the same folks who perpetrated these things. It seems like those things happen from time past, but you just wait. Stick around those folks long enough, just like Meghan said. They decided to be, they were welcoming at first until they realized that any family that is willing to engage in incest to maintain a royal bloodline, what the hell do you think they're gonna do with black folk?
866-801-8255 is the number. But it's even deeper than that. Much like Diana, who basically was doing her own thing out there with the AIDS victims, out there in Calcutta, hugging up the babies and showing the humanity that this crown never had. The popularity in that same space when they went through, I think it was Australia, and Prince Harry talks about, and then Oprah does a brilliant job juxtaposing, Diana to Meghan Markle. She was superseding the crown, and you can never supersede the crown. That's the problem. She was casting a shadow. She was eclipsing, the future king and queen and the queen herself. Problematic. And the king that will never be king, Charles. That's my opinion. I think he'll never be king. I said it. 866-801-8255. So there's a lot of jealousy. How dare she? It's because she's an actress. Then you want to diminish her. Now, listen, she was never a star here, but there's something special about Meghan Markle that, and I think it's a self-awareness, which is what I saw in this interview. And I don't know what come to Jesus moment happened, but she's leaning into her differentness. And by that, I mean her blackness in a way that she probably didn't utilize when she was coming up. You understand? She probably leaned in on the white side because she could be fluid like that. Many of us, you and I, cannot be fluid. We are unapologetically and phenotypically black. Meghan Markle, not so much. Yeah. Imagine if she had the complexion of her mother.
Yeah.
I imagine if she were darker, it would be even like she was just light enough to pass until she became a problem. Meaning, now we're going to use this monkey thing. We're going, what's your child going to look like? I'm going to strip him or her of their title before they were even born against protocol. Why? Because what they're telling us is this white is due north. Yeah. And you're messing up. You're putting ink in this. You're putting that one drop of chocolate, which will undermine the whole thing comes crumbling down once you pull that thread. Meghan Markle pulled the thread. I'm happy that she did.
You know what? It brings to the forefront why the criticisms we see in pop culture end up being more important than we might have even thought when we start having these conversations. I'm talking about Bridgerton when they were talking about colorism. I haven't watched Bridgerton, but from the articles I've read, most of the women that I saw after are fair-skinned women. The darker women, if they're in the show, they're in subservient positions or they're not desired by the men in the show. And so when you think about that issue, where that's set, and even though it's reimagining history with African, phenotypes, it's still, that colorism thing still is an issue. And you're absolutely right. Meghan Markle wouldn't have even gotten into proximity with the family had it not been for her skin color. And I think that when we point out colorisms in other realms, it all is ultimately an offshoot of these same ideas that have been outsourced from the United Kingdom, has been perpetuated. And sometimes you don't see how important these conversations are, how relevant they are until they happen to somebody that, we've adopted Meghan Markle as our princess cousin or something. So when it happens specifically to a real person, that you can tie this to, then it becomes clear. So it's, in some ways, I'm almost happy that we've had these types of awakenings, just like the awakening we had in 2020, because I kid you not, I was very cynical about the wedding when it first happened, and then surprised in the months after that the only drama we had was between Meghan and her dad. I'm like, oh, it seems like, they're embracing her, whatever. This family's a figurehead anyway. Wouldn't make sense for them to castigate her anyway, to cast her aside anyway. And then all of these things come to a
Here we
head, which
go.
is no surprise. No surprise.
Right. Because she is eclipsing Kate and Edward. 866-801-8255, who keep pumping out babies to make sure that they don't ever see the I ain't mad
got a
at them.
question for you though. Because you followed this closely. I don't know if you have the answer to this, but do you believe that Meghan Markle was really taken aback by all of these things? Like, she didn't know this history, or did she not think that this history would affect her because of her personal relationship with the family?
Well, what she said was she didn't study the monarchy. She fell in love with this man who happened to be this. And the first time she meets the queen, he's like, oh, when you meet her, you got to curtsy. She was like, but it's in the house. Like, she thought this was all, the queen, Buckingham Palace, the soldiers, the royal this, the royal that. That's for show. But clearly in the house, we're going to act like normal people. No. And what she realized was that she was part of a firm, that they were the firm, they were institution. I looked at her as being in one of the worst corporate America situations, like to the 10th power. So you think about Black people in corporate America, where we have to fold and comport ourselves a certain way to make sure white people are not uncomfortable around us. Can't be too many of us around the world. Got to keep our dulcet tones. Got to wear our hair a certain way, don't we? You know what I'm saying? Can't come in with the hair natural. Oh, got to wear this suit. Got to wear these stockings. Maybe stockings. Damn, we're doing that. Yes, the sweaters, the whole thing. We have to talk like this. We can't split infinitives. No slang. Right. She's in a space to the 10th, like a corporate. She had to go to human resources to see if she can get some mental relief, some health relief for the trauma that she was experiencing. And they told her, no, it doesn't look good for the firm for you to go get help. What? She was part of an institution. And this is the connection that I make. We're all part of an institution. That's really the message here. We are in this matrix. We are in this hex. We are part of an institution that only thrives by our willingness to participate and go along with it, even at our own demise. Most of us are participating in our own demise, showing up. And I'm not saying you should quit your job, but showing up and following the rules that they've set for you to always be at the bottom. That caste system that you're talking about is set up globally. And a few of us get through, a few magical Negroes, because that's where it all, if we can get a few of them through, then the rest of them will all aspire like Snow White, like Cinderella, like all of the others, to just follow the rules. He'll come along and it'll never happen. But one will get through, and it's enough for the rest of us to aspire to that level, because we know it's possible. One Barack Obama, 866-801-8255. The money, they did not receive money personally, but Oprah cashed in. 17.1 million viewers watched this 2-hour podcast, and it went to her production company. So CBS charged double what they normally charge. It was like the Super Bowl. They charged double what they charged, about $325,000 for a 30-second commercial. It was so many commercials in that first hour. It was like, oh my goodness. CBS, for a normal 30-second spot, this is double what they normally charge. They beat out ABC and NBC for the rights to air it. And Oprah Winfrey's Harpo production got paid between $7 and $9 million for the licensing to agree to show that on CBS. And that also includes international markets. She got paid. Good for her.
On a calm Sunday. Go ahead, Oprah.
Back in a moment. 866-801-8255. So it's interesting. I think I always want to look at these things, which is why I didn't watch it last night. I watched Twitter, because that's, you can watch Twitter. It's like, but I was like, what does it mean for us today? And those of you who come from colonized spaces, by this monarchy should ask yourself, why do we have the need for kings and queens? Why do we need a queen? Why do we need a monarchy? You said it's a figurehead, Domati, but I think it's so much greater. We think about 2.4 billion people right now are living under this monarchy, are living under some sort of monarchy. At Great Britain, you mentioned India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh. Tuvalu, who I'd never heard of before. It's the smallest of the members, an island country in the Polynesian sub-region of Oceania, surrounded by the Pacific Ocean and situated midway between Hawaii and Australia. They're under the Queen. St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent's, the Grenadines, Solomon Islands, New Zealand, Jamaica, Grenada, Canada, Belize, Australia, the Bahamas, Barbados. Barbados no longer. Let me remove them. Antigua. All under this damn Bermuda. Is Bermuda on there too? Yeah, all under this rule. Like, what does that even mean to you people who come from this space?
You know, it means that when I talk to African Americans, and we've done a couple conversations when we went back to on our trips to Ghana to unpack these things, right? Like I call it, like, our little nickname for the tour is like the last lie. The last lie they'll tell us is that the African diaspora isn't connected. And so we unpack the lies that we feel like we've been told in history. And we usually do this after we visit the slave dungeons, because every year that I go, I learn something new that I didn't know before. It might be something subtle about the way we were chained. It might be something about the way they didn't clean feces out of the cages. You learn something new about the brutality. And what you learn is that in Ghana still today, the way they learn about the UK and the way they learn about the history of their country is whitewashed the same way we learn about Black history in our country. And there's still this reverence for the Queen there. There's still this, when you're in school, especially in my dad's generation, you had to be given a quote unquote Christian name, which wasn't even a Christian name. It was just an English name, an English sounding name. So you might be Kojo on your, within your family, but your birth certificate might say Daniel. And then some of those names weren't even names that were in the Bible, but they were deemed Christian names. So you're already indoctrinated at a young age that there's something wrong with your natural community, your natural makeup. And that's what the Africans abroad go through. And then you got what we go through here, which I don't need to explain. And when I think about every time I look at how we revered the whole union with Meghan Markle, how we look at these images, to me, all I see is a perpetuation of those same ideas, that queen, that princess means different than the monarchs of Ethiopia, means different than Mansa Musa, means different than the Ashanti kings that I grew up reading about in my household. What makes them more special than my own? And I think that the problem in not educating our kids enough is just like when we go into corporate America, we become shell-shocked when we confront these things. Just like I feel for Meghan Markle, but I'm also somewhat irritated with love at her naivete, even though it's not her fault.
Because I don't think she was naive.
You don't think? I think there's a little bit of naivete there, and I don't want to disparage someone who's a victim.
I think there was some
naivete.
There was more arrogance than naivete. I think she thought she could charm her way into this. But what we're learning, or what we should know at the deepest recesses of our spirit, is that there's no charming your way through racism. Nope.
What you just said, there's a tweet, really quick, it's lengthy, but it's good. It's 2 tweets. And it was written by someone, I can't even credit them because the page is private, so I'm assuming they want to maintain privacy. But she said that she talks about how the same thing that you said, that arrogance is really afoot. Let me find the tweet. She says, an evil family that protects child rapist family members while it perpetuates sexual violence across the world. An evil family that is a root cause of white supremacy globally was racist toward her and her child. She was surprised about microaggressions from a world aggressor. I'm not saying that what I'm hearing they did to her is any way acceptable. What I'm saying is that she was happy to opt into an evil family when she thought it would benefit, not harm her. She joined to become the princess of an old empire, not its victim. And so I think that goes right at what you were saying.
Listen, if we can get out one of us, most of us would take that ticket, that magical ticket, even if it means leaving everybody else behind. I fortunately am not wired that way. If we ain't all free, if everybody ain't free, I'm sticking with y'all. I'm like Harriet. Let's go. Come on, let's go back and get what? Everybody ain't free? Let's go. Let's go get some freedom. 866-801-8255. Because this out here being by myself, being free is not the business. I just
Hmm.
want more company personally. All right, let's go to the phones. Domity Pungo is here. Let's head over to Linda. Linda in Long Island. Hello, Linda.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I know I have to talk quick because my blood is boiling right now. I respect you, I admire you, and I was waiting to hear from you to hear your opinion. First, let's turn the table around briefly. Okay, I was in Sag Harbor, Long Island, with the wealthy blacks who were educated, and to be accepted, I had to be fair or look white and have good hair or curly hair or permanent hair to be accepted. I was only there because I was a babysitter, because my aunt lived in Riverdale, and I was also the babysitter to Dr. Ralph Bunch's daughter. So, and she was fair-skinned, and she lived in Riverdale. And I was in Sag Harbor because my aunt and uncle were doctors. That's the only way I was accepted. They were the most prejudiced blacks, the most prejudiced, except for James Brown's kids because he was dark-skinned and had money.
Okay.
So
All
when
right.
these people talk
Linda,
about color,
what's your overarching point?
okay, what I'm saying is there's a lot of hypocrisy when people are calling and giving their opinion. You had blacks that were so doggone prejudiced is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
but you're
Meghan
talking
Markle,
about black people who, again, the only thing we've been taught about ourselves is that we are not good enough. So we've had brown paper bags. I'm never going to demonize, and I'm sorry that you experienced that. You know, the brown paper bag tests and all of the things to get into organizations and sororities and things like that. The damage, the beauty, I think, of this kind of colonizing racism that Great Britain was the greatest purveyor of, is that it forces the colonizers to do the work. That's what Domity was saying. You know, we're doing the work for them. We're loading the bullets in the chambers for the bullets that are pointing towards us, we're giving them the bullets because that's the mindset. If I can teach you that you're not valuable and have this dangling thing, this whiteness, this thing that y'all could never be, but a few of you can slip through, then you're going to turn around. That's why the immigrants come here. The folks that came here that were no dogs, no Italians. Oh, we let Italians in. Okay, I hate the N words. Them moolies, them so-and-so. But you were one of us just a generation before. No Irish, no dogs, no Italian. Oh, we're going to let the Irish in. Okay, all the biggest draft riots in this country, the most amount of carnage and wreckage on black people, hands of the Irish, especially in New York, who were in the same condition. And before that, in bondage, during indentured servitude, when we were the same, guess what we did? Married, had babies together. And as soon as that whiteness you got through, I can't stand these N words. So this is a pathology that we have to confront and deal with, and we're going to talk about it. Let's not do the anecdotal personal stories because it's a lot larger than just your experience having racist black people be bad towards you. Hurt people hurt people. All right, let me take another call or two. Let's head over and thank you for your call. Christy in California, welcome.
Hey, hi, Kelly.
Hi.
I am so excited, girl. I finally got Siri in my phone. I used to listen to you every day going to college, every day after work, but I'm happy. Okay, I got a couple quick things to say. I'm a young black woman with a family, with children. I've seen things when I was younger. Racism that hit me that I had, I had to figure it out. My children, where I live at, the city where I live at, my children have experienced racism. But racism, colorism is real. All of that is real. Racism is so deep that it's been interwoven into the fabric of our societal status. It's not going nowhere. It has become a generational inheritance, if you will, on every end, to where we don't even know where it started, where it started from, or how to even finish it. The ideology that what you see is what you get in 2021, as I see, it's coming unveiled. It's being revealed for what it truly is, that African Americans or people of color, period, are being the ones that's working behind the scenes. And like it or not, baby, you gonna have to deal with it. So I like the fact that I can see that. I just don't want the not necessarily the work, but the the bad part of it. You know, how people are still going to be labeled and how they're going to be treated until it gets better. But we have to go somewhere. I just want to say that we have always been misinformed, mistreated, misunderstood, misrepresented. So I hope Meghan Markle put her big grown woman drawers on and get it together and figure it out.
Yeah, that's not Christy. That's not. This is not even about Meghan Markle. This is much bigger than her, and it's not about she's bitching and complaining and whining and needs to put her big panties on. This is about dismantling a system that should never have been in the first place. And this is about each and every one of us understanding our own value outside of the lens of this system, because you're still talking about inside the lens. You're still in the matrix. You're still in the hex or outside of the hex, trying to get in to see yourself. And what Domity is saying, we have kings and queens way before we were brought here in the hulls of ships. That needs to be a predominant conversation. And we got to do the work to find out and remember who we are so that none of this matters. None of it matters, right? There's no economy. There's no politics. Without Black people. And as soon as we show up as our full selves, understanding the power that we actually have, and not through the lens of somebody else, not this tiny position that they put us in to then fight each other and tell her to get over it and all this other stuff. That's not the conversation we should be having. We should be having, why do we have a queen in 2021 that anybody should curtsy to and pay deference and respect to? What gives her that position and that right? That should be the question. Why do we have a boss? In any business that we're in, a boss, yes, I pay your salary, but you're not subservient to me. You are getting paid to do a job that makes me rich. Quite frankly, I'm giving you a tenth of what I'm making from your labor. There should be a different relationship here. We're talking about people unionizing. Some of y'all are like, they should just be happy with their $20 an hour. I'm only making this. You are juxtaposing it through a lens of oppression, not through a lens of power. And we need to get back to our power.
And I want to be clear on what both Karen and I are saying when we say that either Meghan was arrogant in some instances throughout this or naive in some instances throughout this. Let's be clear, this is no fault of her own. This is a byproduct of conditioning and miseducation. So I also don't want it to be misread that we're denigrating the Black woman on International Women's Day for speaking up and standing up for herself and getting out of it. But on the contrary, we're actually saying the complete opposite is that we are also victims of the miseducation. And not only did the monarchy outsource these world powers and take resources from these lands, they also instituted their language in their school systems. They put so many subtleties within the school books. They did so much to make sure that we would see them as superior to ourselves. And a lot of that blinds us to what it is that they're capable of. And so that sister's a victim in more ways than one. So even as we talk about those actions in outline, I just want to make that piece clear too.